For 600 years, one power owned the sea road between India and China. Every ship carrying silk east or camphor west stopped at its harbor and paid. And then for 600 years after that, nobody knew it had ever been there. Not the Dutch, not the British, not even the people farming on top of its capital. Its name was Srivijaya, and it took a man reading a stone in 1918 to find it again. The first clear witness is Chinese. In 671, a Buddhist monk named Yijing sailed from Gwangju on a Persian ship, and 22 days later stepped ashore in a fortified city on the Musi River in what is now Palembang, Sumatra. He counted more than 1,000 Buddhist monks studying there and told any pilgrim bound for India to stop here first and learn the rules properly. The city itself speaks only once and briefly. A small stone found on a Musi tributary records a ruler titled Dapantihyam boarding a boat with 20,000 troops, arriving and founding a settlement. It ends with a line that changed everything. Srivijaya, victorious, abundant forever. It is also the oldest surviving sentence in the Malay language. 2 years later, the same ruler planted a public park and had the dedication carved. It lists coconut, areca, sago, and bamboo, and it gives the merit away to every creature, the ones that can move around and the ones that cannot. If they were hungry, it says, may they find food and drink. It is the gentlest text this kingdom ever produced. The next one is not gentle. On Bangka Island, a pillar of stone promises death to anyone who rebels, who talks to rebels, or who merely listens to them. Then it adds a detail no historian can ignore. The carving was made as the Srivijayan army departed to attack Java. 4 years after its founding, this river town was projecting a fleet across the sea. The strangest object is a slab crowned with 7 cobra heads and fitted with a spout. Water was poured over the curse, ran down across the letters, and was drunk by men swearing loyalty to the king. The text is worn almost smooth because the ceremony was performed so many times. And then Srivijaya stops writing about itself. Those few years produced a burst of inscriptions. The centuries that followed produced almost nothing at home. When later kings did leave a record, they left it abroad, in Thailand, in India, in China. A kingdom that ruled the world's busiest strait spent 500 years saying nothing where it actually lived. That silence is why it vanished. The evidence resumes far from Sumatra. A stele in southern Thailand, dated 775, praises a Srivijayan ruler and lists Buddhist sanctuaries he founded there. Historians are careful with this one. It looks less like conquest and more like patronage, a king paying for temples in a place he wanted to matter in. Around this time, the ruling line becomes entangled with the Sailendra of Java, the dynasty that built Borobudur. A Srivijayan princess named Tara married into them. Which house was the senior partner? Scholars genuinely cannot agree. What is certain is the thing people get wrong. Borobudur is Javanese. Srivijaya did not build it. It married into the family that did. Carved on Borobudur are outrigger vessels with Tanya sails and quarter rudders. They are Javanese carvings, and no one can prove they are Srivijayan ships, but they are the ships of these seas in Srivijaya's century, and they show what moved the cargo. The proof of reach comes from Bihar, in northern India. A copper plate dated 860 records the Pala king Devapala endowing a monastery at Nalanda, built at the request of Maharaja Balapatradba, king of Suvarnadvipa, the island of gold. A Sumatran king was funding a university in India, and the record of it survived in India, not in Sumatra. The gold was real, carried down from the Minangkabau highlands. So was camphor and benzoyl and resin, cut in the northern Sumatran forests and shipped out through Baris, where the finest grade in the medieval world took the town's name. Cloves and nutmeg passed through too, but those came from Maluku far to the east. Srivijaya did not grow the world's spices. It owned the doorway. In 1006, a Srivijayan Maharaja paid for a Buddhist monastery at Nagapattinam on the Chola coast of southern India. Relations were warm. The two greatest maritime powers of the Indian Ocean were building each other's temples. 19 years later, Rajendra Chola sent a fleet. It did not take the expected route. It crossed to the west coast of Sumatra, ran south, and came through the Sunda Strait, behind the Srivijayan navy waiting at Kedah. Palembang was hit first. The royal compound was plundered and the king was carried off to India. Back in Thanjavur, Rajendra had the captured ports carved onto his temple wall. 13 names, Srivijaya at the head of the list. Whether the kingdom survived that year is still argued. What is not argued is this: that victory inscription on an enemy's temple in Tamil is the last surviving text anywhere in the world that writes the name Srivijaya. Power drifted north to Jambai, on the Batanghari River, where a Buddhist complex of red brick temples spreads for 7 kilometers along the water. By the end of the 12th century, what remained was a small kingdom and a vassal of Java. In the 1370s, a Malay ruler at Palembang wrote to the new Ming emperor asking to resume the old tribute relationship, the exact instrument that had made Srivijaya rich. Majapahit sent its own envoy and persuaded the court that Palembang was a Javanese vassal, not a country. Then, in 1377, Majapahit sent ships. The princes scattered. The successor state was finished. One of those scattered princes, or a descendant, depending on which chronicle you trust, founded Malacca at the mouth of a river on the Malay Peninsula. Whether that descent was blood or story, he inherited the method, hold the strait, and the world comes to you. Angkor was sandstone. Borobudur is a mountain of cut rock. Srivijaya was wood, bamboo, and thatch on a river that floods. A Chinese visitor in the 13th century wrote that the people lived outside the city on the water, on rafts lined with reeds. Rafts rot. The kingdom also carried too many names, Foshi and Sanfoki in Chinese, Zabag and Sribuza in Arabic. And as late as 1973, an excavation at Palembang concluded there was nothing there. In 1918, a 32-year-old French scholar named Georges Coedes published a short paper. Others had read the word Srivijaya on the bank of stone and taken it for a man's name. Coedes recognized it as a country, then fused Chinese, Arab, Tamil, and Old Malay records into a single 600-year kingdom. He never set foot in Sumatra, and he died before the excavations proved him right. Since 2011, divers in the Musi River have been pulling up gold rings, bronze bells, and a gem-covered Buddha, and selling most of it. The pair found in 1918 is being lost again, one dive at a time.